Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Boundary and Annexation Survey webinar. We're excited you're here with us today. My name is Michaela Tworog, and I'm joined today by Lauren Ely and Maria Panichon. Today, we expect our webinar to run about 2 to 2.5 hours. We know this is a long time to sit through a webinar, so we do break it up into two halves. During the first half of the webinar, we will cover a brief overview of the Boundary and Annexation Survey, or BAS, and provide some high-level information on the program. We will also show you how to respond and provide information on our BAS certification program. We'll do a quick walkthrough of the annual response form and show you a couple useful things on the BAS website. After, we'll take a quick 5-minute break. During the second half of the webinar, we will provide additional information on our digital response methods and demonstrate how to create a BAS submission using the BAS Partnership Toolbox for ArcGIS Pro and GUPS Web. We will then show you how to submit your updates securely using the Secure Web Incoming Module, or SWIM. If you have questions at any point during the webinar, please feel free to ask them in real time. You should see a Q&A panel in WebEx that you can use to type questions to us at any time. We are monitoring the Q&A panel and will answer any questions as they are asked. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted online on our BAS website. We will send the recording link and the slides to the email address provided during webinar registration. You will also receive an evaluation link at the end of today's webinar as you close out of WebEx. We would greatly appreciate your feedback so we can continue to provide webinars that are helpful for you. With that, let's get started. The Boundary and Annexation Survey, otherwise known as BAS, is an annual opportunity for tribal, state, and local governments to submit boundary changes, such as annexations, de-annexations, and corrections to a spatially incorrect boundary, name or description changes, legal status updates, such as incorporations, disincorporations, mergers, or consolidations, as well as updates to census-designated places, or CDPs. The Census Bureau conducts BAS to fulfill the agency's responsibility as part of the National Spatial Data Infrastructure. The Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, Circular A16 designates the Census Bureau as the lead federal agency for maintaining national data about governments and statistical and administrative boundaries. The Census Bureau conducts BAS to fulfill this responsibility and to ensure the boundary data is current and accurate. Information collected through BAS is uploaded to the Census Bureau website through TigerWeb, shapefiles, and geodatabases. In addition, the data is loaded to the USGS National Map and data.gov. Each of these services provide open data for federal, state, and local government agencies. The legal boundary data collected through BAS contributes toward a geographic framework that helps accurately tabulate data collected by the Census Bureau from its various censuses and surveys. This includes, but is not limited to, the decennial census, the American Community Survey, and the Population Estimates Program. Legal boundary data contributes to establishing the housing and population counts within a government. Participating in BAS confirms that all legal boundaries in the Census Bureau's database are current and accurate, and increases the accuracy of statistical data collected and tabulated by various censuses and surveys. Accurate boundaries provide the foundation for good decision-making for tribal, state, and local governments. Participating in BAS also ensures communities receive the federal funding they are entitled to. The federal government allocates more than $2.3 trillion in federal funds annually for health, welfare, infrastructure, education, and other federal programs and services. The Census Bureau invites all active, functioning legal governments to participate in BAS, totaling nearly 40,000 governments included in the program yearly. These governments include federally recognized tribes with a reservation and/or off-reservation trust land, states, counties or county equivalents, such as parishes and boroughs, minor civil divisions like towns and townships, and incorporated places such as cities and villages. The Census Bureau maintains program and organizational contacts for all eligible governments. The BAS contact is the Census Bureau's primary contact for all BAS-related correspondence and receives all survey materials. Where there is no BAS contact for a government, the Census Bureau will reach out to a local planning or GIS department to establish one. If no BAS contact is established through these means, the tribal chair or highest elected official will receive all correspondence and survey materials. We understand that not all governments might have the resources to respond to BAS, so we do have a couple of BAS agreements that we offer to state and county governments. BAS agreements are beneficial as they coordinate the sharing of information between the Census Bureau and state and local governments, reduce duplication of effort, as well as time and cost burden on local governments, and help to ensure collection of complete and accurate geographies through BAS. County and state governments often have more resources to respond to BAS using a digital response method, while many smaller governments may rely on paper maps or do not have resources to respond. The first type of BAS agreement we offer are state agreements. The Census Bureau maintains state agreements with interested state governments where there are laws in place requiring local governments to report boundary changes to a designated state agency. There are two types of state agreements available. Under the first type of agreement, the state reports boundary changes for all incorporated places, minor civil divisions if applicable, and counties within its jurisdiction. The Census Bureau maintains this type of agreement with the 14 states listed here. A new agreement was formed with Pennsylvania for the 2024 BAS. The Census Bureau is working towards new agreements with Delaware, New York, and South Carolina for the 2025 BAS. Under the second type of agreement, the state provides the Census Bureau with a list of local governments within its jurisdiction that reported boundary changes to the state. The Census Bureau then uses this list to confirm and validate boundary changes local governments reported to BAS. The Census Bureau also offers consolidated BAS or CBAS agreements to counties that are interested in submitting boundary changes on behalf of the governments within their jurisdiction. Local government participation in the BAS agreement is optional. Here on the slide, we have an example of a county in Colorado. Jefferson County participates in a CBAS agreement. They decided that they wanted to take over that responsibility for all the local governments within the county. Within that county, you have Golden City, which participates in the agreement and allows the county to respond for them. However, the nearby city of Lakewood decided they may have the resources to respond. So even though they're within a county that participates in an agreement, they choose not to participate and respond to BAS on their own behalf every year. If a county government is interested in establishing a CBAS agreement, they should review the current list of CBAS agreements linked here and also located on the BAS agreements webpage. Once they've confirmed their county does not participate in an agreement, they should reach out to the Census Bureau by email to receive the BAS 6 form. The BAS 6 form, also known as the CBAS agreement form, documents the new CBAS contact information and records a list of all governments in their jurisdiction and whether or not they will participate in the agreement. Local governments included in a BAS agreement will no longer receive a BAS package each year. The highest elected official continues to receive their annual BAS notification, including either the state BAS contact or the county CBAS contact information, depending on the type of agreement, but not the materials to update their boundaries. BAS participants should take note of these key dates within the program schedule. Boundary updates must be legally in effect on or before January 1st to be reported in the current survey year. All BAS updates reported to the 2024 BAS must be legally in effect on or before January 1st, 2024. The Census Bureau will still process changes effective after January 1st, but those updates will not be included in the 2024 American Community Survey or Population Estimates Program data products. The updates will, however, be reflected in next year's BAS products and materials. March 1st is the first BAS deadline. Boundary updates submitted by this date will be included in the American Community Survey Population Estimates Program, and next year's BAS materials. May 31st marks the final BAS deadline. Updates submitted after March 1st, but before May 31st, will be included in next year's American Community Survey and Population Estimates Program data, as well as the next year's BAS materials. That concludes our overview of BAS, so now we'll discuss how to respond. In early January, the Census Bureau kicked off BAS by sending out the annual response email to all eligible governments. This email notifies governments that BAS has begun and provides action steps, including a link to the annual response form. The annual response form is an official form that participants access from their annual response email or the BAS website. This form allows participants to do the following: quickly access tools and resources to review their government's legal boundaries, indicate whether there are any legal boundary changes to report to that year's BAS, and if so, indicate their preferred participation method for reporting changes, review legal changes and attributes submitted in last year's BAS, review their government's highest elected official or tribal chair contact information and update if necessary, review their government's designated BAS contact and update if necessary, and receive next steps and resources to report boundary updates. The Census Bureau requests that participants review their boundaries and contact information and submit the annual response form, even if their government does not have boundary changes to report. If participants do not respond, the Census Bureau will contact their government to confirm their boundary status. Responding with no changes reduces additional outreach from the Census Bureau. Participants may have multiple options available to review their boundaries. TigerWeb is a web-based mapping application that allows users to visualize the Census Bureau's topologically integrated geographic encoding and referencing, or TIGER system, and provides a simple way to view TIGER data without downloading any data. Participants also have the option to download partnership shapefiles for use within their own GIS software or download BAS PDF reference maps to review their boundaries. All of these tools are available on the BAS website and through the annual response form. This is an example that highlights the importance of reviewing the Census Bureau's current boundary data prior to completing the annual response form. On the map, the blue line represents the boundary that the Census Bureau had on file for this government as of the 2015 BAS. The BAS contact reported no changes that year. In 2016 and 2017, the government annexed a significant amount of land, but did not respond to the 2016 or the 2017 BAS. As a result, these annexations could not be added to the Census Bureau's database, and the boundary data on file remained unchanged. In 2018, the new BAS contact did not review the current boundary the Census Bureau had on file prior to completing the annual response form. Since there were no annexations on file with the government's records for that year, they reported no changes. Because the governments did not review the current boundary data on file before reporting no changes to the 2018 BAS, the areas shaded in red were not included in the Census Bureau's representation of the government's boundary. This affects the government's housing and population count and affects the allocation of federal funding to this community. If a participant determines that their government needs to submit BAS updates, they should indicate their preferred submission method. Participants have three options. They can download the BAS Partnership Toolbox, download GUPS, or request paper materials by mail. For the 2024 BAS, a small group of participants will be given the option to report updates through GUPS Web, which will be demoed in the second half of this webinar. Regardless of the material delivery method indicated on the annual response form, participants can download maps, partnership shapefiles, and GUPS directly from the BAS website. If there are no boundary changes to report, check the appropriate box and submit the form. No further action is required, and you won't hear from us until next year's BAS. Whether or not a participant has boundary changes to report, they will be able to review and update the contact information for the tribal chair or highest elected official and the BAS contact. Once the contacts are reviewed and updated, the form will provide next steps based on the response and submission options selected. This will include links to survey materials and how-to guides. Participants can also register for a BAS webinar, which you probably already figured out since you're here today. The first option to submit boundary changes is to use a commercial GIS software. The Census Bureau provides the BAS Partnership Toolbox for ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Desktop, as well as the partnership shapefiles that participants may use to submit boundary changes. The partnership shapefiles and the BAS Partnership Toolbox are available for download from the BAS website. The second option to submit boundary changes is to use the Geographic Update Partnership Software, or GUPS. GUPS is an open source QGIS-based software that contains all the functionality participants need to create their BAS submission. GUPS is intended for those with a basic understanding of or limited experience with GIS software, but is great for participants of all skill levels. The software is available for download from the BAS website. GUPS Web is a customized web-based GIS application. GUPS Web allows partners to import local government boundary data, automate boundary change creation, and export standardized files for submission to the Census Bureau. For the 2024 BAS, GUPS Web is released to a limited number of governments. For participants with no GIS experience or prefer not to submit boundary changes digitally, the Census Bureau offers a paper method for submitting updates. Participants who opt to use this method will receive large format paper maps in the mail and should make updates directly onto the maps using the provided annotation materials. Participants using the BAS Partnership Toolbox, the GUPS application, or GUPS Web will need to use the Secure Web Incoming Module, or SWIM, to submit their updates to the Census Bureau for the 2024 BAS. This is the official web portal for uploading materials and is the only secure method for submitting digital files. Due to security reasons, we cannot accept any files sent through email or through file transfer protocol sites. Participants using paper maps can return their annotated maps using the postage paid return envelope provided. Now let's switch gears and talk about a BAS-related program called state certification. BAS state certification is an opportunity for state agencies to verify that BAS updates were reported in accordance with state laws. This is what ensures the accuracy and legality of all boundary changes and legal statuses in our database. This is a separate program and is optional. Through the BAS state certification program, each state governor designates a state certifying official, or SCO. The SCO is responsible for reviewing lists of changes that were reported during the previous BAS cycle and certifying those changes or providing updates as needed. Depending on the state, the SCO can receive up to 4 lists. List 1 will provide any dissolutions reported in the last year. List 2 will provide all of the boundary updates reported in the previous BAS year. List 3 will provide a list of active incorporated places, and List 4 will provide a list of active minor civil divisions, or MCDs. In states with strong reporting laws, the SCO can certify correctly reported boundary changes. They can edit attributes of boundary updates that are not correct. They can reverse changes that were reported to the Census Bureau, but not reported in accordance with state laws. And they can add changes that were reported to the state, but not reported to the Census Bureau. For the reversals and the additions, the Census Bureau will send a discrepancy letter to the local government, informing them of the discrepancy. In states without strong reporting laws, the Census Bureau will not add or remove any reported legal changes without first conferring with the local government. A discrepancy letter will be sent to that local government and encourage the BAS contact to work with their state to resolve any discrepancies. The schedule can be a little confusing, so we wanted to lay it out visually for you here. The BAS state certification is paused for the 2023 BAS cycle, so this schedule is for the 2024 BAS state certification that will begin in the fall of 2024. In January, we send the annual response email starting the 2024 BAS. March 1st will be the first BAS deadline, and May 31st will be the final BAS deadline. Through the summer, we'll work to tabulate all of the changes that were submitted to BAS, and in October, state governors will receive the invitation to participate in the 2024 BAS State Certification Program and are asked to designate the SCO. In December, the Census Bureau sends the listings of changes reported through the 2024 BAS out to all the SCOs, and they usually have until March 2025 to review them. Discrepancy letters are sent to local governments around April, and this gives local governments the opportunity to submit any missing updates or resolve any discrepancies by that May 31st deadline of the 2025 BAS. For additional information, we encourage you to click the link on this slide to access our BAS website. Here you can find program information, program schedule, how-to guides, reference materials, events and trainings, and basically any information you'd need for participating in BAS. I'm going to show you a few helpful items on our BAS website, as well as walk you through our BAS annual response form. To navigate to the BAS website, you can open up your favorite web browser and search for Census BAS. It should be the first result. The BAS homepage contains the most useful links. You can access the annual response form through the Respond to BAS link. You can view videos, response information, schedule and how-to guides, as well as access the BAS maps, partnership shapefiles, and TigerWeb for reviewing your boundary. So first, we're going to take a look at the annual response form by selecting the Respond to BAS link. This first page just tells you a little bit about BAS and how to register for a webinar and how to contact us. And then you can start the survey. You can find your government by either typing in your BAS ID or entering your government's name. Your BAS ID can be found in the subject line of the BAS announcement email you received, or you can also find your BAS ID in the BAS code list link here. One thing to note about the form is you may need to type a little slowly as it tries to filter results in real time. So if it clears out or gives you an error, it will start over. I'll make an error now. It will clear out your data and you can try again. Once you select your government, you can hit continue on the screen. The first thing we'll ask you to do is review your government's name and type to ensure they are correct. If they are not correct, you can select no and make any necessary updates before moving forward. If you selected the wrong government by accident, you can also return to the start menu and start over. This next page shows any legal changes reported through the 2023 BAS. All we're asking you to do here is confirm that anything submitted is correct. If you do not see data listed here, that means we did not receive any legal boundary changes through the 2023 BAS. If you have new annexations or other legal changes to submit through the 2024 BAS, you're going to do that separately. That's not on this page. So if you do have data, you can review it, make any edits if necessary, and then we'll click continue. Next, you'll be asked to review your government's current boundary data. Here we have links to TigerWeb, as well as a guide for how to find your boundary in TigerWeb for BAS. You'll use this GeoID provided to help you find that. You can go directly to the BAS Partnership shapefiles to download your data, and you can view the PDF BAS map for your government. Once you've reviewed your boundary and determined whether or not you have changes to report, you can select yes, we have boundary changes to report, or no, we do not have boundary changes to report on this screen. For the sake of this demonstration, we'll say we have changes to report. And just to note, if you are a county that participates in a CBAS agreement, there will be an extra page in this form showing you the governments that participate in your agreement. The form is customized based on your agreement type and your level of government. So if the form doesn't look exactly like this as you're filling it out, don't worry, that's normal. It's customized, so we just can't show every scenario in a webinar. If you choose that you do have updates to submit, you're going to be asked your planned submission method. Keep in mind that you can change this at any time. We just like to know your plan, especially if you're planning to use paper maps, since those are mailed to you. You'll select your type and then hit continue. I'm going to stop at this point for demonstration purposes, since the next two slides are asking to review contact information. But you'll be asked to review the contact information for your highest elected official or tribal chair, as well as your BAS contact, and then you will be able to submit the form. I'm going to take us back to our BAS website now that we've looked at the form. If you are wondering whether your government has responded to BAS, or you want to check if your government is in an agreement, an easy way to do both of those things is to view our BAS participation and response viewer. So I'm going to click on the link now. It will first open up to the response status map. Here you can see if your government has responded to the BAS or if the submission has been received, if there are changes to a report. This map updates for the various levels of government. So here you'll see that we're at the state level and we can see all of our state agreement states. If we zoom in a little further, we'll start to see counties. And if we zoom in even further, we'll begin to see cities, minor civil divisions, and tribal areas. You can click on a government to see the submission status. So here in Frederick County, Maryland, we can see that the government indicated there are changes forthcoming on the annual response form. There's more information about the map here on the left, and the legend is here at the bottom. All right. So now I will switch over to the participation map. And one nice thing is that it does keep your zoom level as you switch between maps, which is helpful if you're trying to look at both participation and response for an area. I'll zoom us back out to the state level here. This map works the same way. We get to see more government types as we zoom in. So zoomed out here, we can see all of our state agreements. If we zoom in, We can see the various county agreements. And even further, we can see all the information for the places, minor civil divisions, and tribal areas. And again, if we click on a government, we'll be able to see their participation details. Okay. Back on the BAS website, another place that you can view participation, CBAS agreements is down here on the BAS agreements link. On this page, again, we have all the information about state and consolidated BAS agreements. We have a document showing state law summaries, so that will help determine whether it's a what type of state agreement you can participate in. And we also have that list of the current consolidated BAS agreements if you'd prefer to view that in Excel format over the map viewer. From the main BAS page, over here on the left, you'll see various sections. The one that you'll probably be using the most is information for respondents. This is where we keep the majority of our information for the program. This includes an outline of the Boundary and Annexation Survey participation process. And the other pages in this section on the left-hand side of the screen contain additional resources and detailed information on various aspects of BAS, including response methods, state and county agreements, and related programs. I'll show you the response methods page. Here you can read more about the Toolbox, GUPS, GUPS Web, and Paper BAS. This is also where you'll go if you want to download the BAS Partnership Toolbox or GUPS. If you click the link inline text, it will take you to the page where you can download the tools. So backing up to the response methods page, we have the same download page available for GUPS. Just making sure I covered everything I wanted to cover on this page. So yeah, the links on the main page and on that information for respondent section are probably going to be the ones you'll need the most. But we do encourage you to take a few minutes to familiarize yourself with the BAS website and look through all of the great information we have to offer. I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint here for a couple more slides. So lastly, we just want to introduce the upcoming Geography Division Partner Portal, which we will begin using for our geographic partnership programs over the next several years. The Census Bureau is currently developing the Geography Division Partner Portal, or GDPP, which will be a one-stop shop for all geographic partnership program needs. Each program will have its own interface and associated information for partners to access program information. In the future, we are planning to have a built-in communication platform and additional integration for program responses. Users will be able to see data and information specific to their government through the portal. Currently, geographic program information is found throughout census.gov, and we are simplifying it to a singular interface in the partner portal with tabs for each program. Additionally, each program currently has its own email inbox, and the partner portal will allow partners to access one location and contact whomever they need to without contacting various email addresses. The GDPP will be a one-stop shop for all program needs, from learning about the program to completing a submission. As always, this is not live yet, but will be something upcoming over the next few years. So we just wanted to give you a little preview of what's to come. For BAS support, you can contact us by phone toll-free at 1-800-972-5651 or by email at go.bas@census.gov. This concludes the first half of our webinar. If you have any additional questions related to this presentation, please feel free to post them now or at any point during the rest of today's webinar using the Q&A module. If you think of questions after today's webinar, you're always welcome to email us at go.bas@census.gov or give us a call. We will now take a 5-minute break and return after for technical demonstrations.
All right, welcome back from break. I might sound different because I'm Lauren Ely, not Michaela. Now we're going to cover the technical demonstrations. I'm going to cover the first half, which includes the partner toolbox for ArcGIS Pro. And then I'll turn it over to Maria to demo GUPS Web, and then I will hop back on and demo Swim at the end. First, to participate in Digital BAS, a government must have the ability to use the Geographic Update Partnership Software, GUPS, GUPS Web, or other commercial GIS software to update data provided by the Census Bureau. They must also have the contact information of the BAS contact, the person updating the data, if that's a different person, and the highest elected official or tribal chair. For all legal boundary changes, including annexations, de-annexations, new incorporations, and disincorporations, there should be legal documentation and effective dates as well. I'm now going to go over some slides about the partnership toolbox before we jump into the demo. To automate the process of creating a digital BAS submission using GIS software, the Census Bureau created the BAS Partnership Toolbox. It says here that you are not required to use the Partner Toolbox to complete a BAS submission. However, we do strongly encourage it at this point. The toolbox automates the process of downloading data, creating change polygons, removing sliver polygons, formatting data, checking attribution, and preparing and exporting files for submission. Currently, the BAS Partnership Toolbox is only able to automatically create boundary updates. However, there are instructions provided on how to populate change files for features, landmarks, and CDPs. To start creating your submission with the toolbox, you'll need the 11-digit BAS ID for the government being processed, which can be found in the subject line of the annual response email, the government's local shapefile or feature class showing the legal boundary of the government being processed, and this file should include certain fields that are required within the local that are required to create your changes, and we'll go over what those what that information is later during the demo. And then you will also need the BAS partnership shapefiles. It's worth noting that the partner toolbox will automatically download that data for you if you'd like. However, you can also download it yourself if you're experiencing issues with the partner toolbox downloading the data for you. I know sometimes there's firewall issues or other access issues that folks will run into. And to use the toolbox, you'll need to have ArcGIS Pro 3.0 or higher, or if you're still using Arc Desktop, you'll need ArcGIS 10.0 or higher already installed on your computer. Due to Esri's deprecation of the ArcGIS Desktop suite, there will be limited support for the ArcGIS Desktop toolbox, and it will be phased out after the 2024 BAS. You'll also need to download the toolbox and the toolbox how-to guide, which are available on the BAS website under the Mapping Tools section, which I will go over in a second. All right, now we're ready to start our demo. I'm going to stop presenting and switch to the BAS website, just to kind of show you where to get the tools and how to download them. I usually will guide folks to their favorite search engine and ask them to search for the BAS Partnership Toolbox, and that will bring you to this page, the BAS Partnership Tools. It's usually the very first result, if that's what you search for. When you land on this page, you'll want to expand the box for the version of the toolbox you want to download. So whether you want the Pro or the desktop version, we're going to expand the Pro version. And then you're going to click this link here to download the Partner Toolbox. There are also instructions for how to install the toolbox. I'm going to say install in quotes because you're really just unzipping it and moving it. You're not actually running anything to install it at this point. But if you aren't sure where to put it or how to set it up, there are instructions here for how to do that as well. When you download the toolbox, which should be fairly quick, it'll show up in your downloads folder. And you'll want to unzip that file. I'm not sure if I actually have this shared. Hold on one second. Let me make sure I'm also sharing. Oh, I'm sharing my screen, that's right. So you'll find it in your downloads and you'll want to take that zip file and copy and paste it or unzip it to a location that you have write access to. So for this example, I'm going to go to my C drive. Sorry. And put it here in my data folder. When you unzip it, you will see a DBAS folder. And it's important that you don't alter any of the folder structure inside this folder. That folder structure looks like this. You'll have a projects folder, a setup folder, a how-to guide, and a change log. The change log will just tell you what's new. If you have the most recent version, it'll tell you what bugs or issues we've fixed. So if you're encountering an issue, you may want to go download the most recent version on the website. Make sure you have the most recent version by checking the change log. Excuse me. And then the how-to guide will also walk you through how to make your submission. At this point, you will want to open ArcMap or ArcPro, sorry, that's a hard habit to kill. And you will want to select a new project. You can click on blank map, and then you'll want to navigate to that projects folder. Hold on. Inside the DBAS folder. And then at this point, for the name, you will want to enter your BAS ID for the entity you want to process. Let me pull that up for myself real quick. And then once you've entered your BAS ID, you confirm that you're in your projects folder. You also want to make sure this box is checked for create new folder for this project. And then you click OK, and it will create a new project for you. This is one of the most crucial steps, and it's easy to miss. and it's okay. We just want to make sure that everybody knows you do have to create your project yourself within the projects folder. After this, the toolbox will pull everything in for you automatically during the project setup tool. If you don't create the project itself first, though, you will get an error that the geodatabase doesn't exist and that you need to go create your project. I've already created this folder, so I'm not going to click OK. I'm just going to open my project at this point, just to speed things up a little bit. You'll see we have a blank map. The first step you need to take is to actually add the partnership toolbox to your project. You can find your toolbox within the setup folder. I found the easiest way to add it is actually to find it in your File Explorer and then drag and drop it into Pro. If that doesn't work for you for whatever reason, you can also right-click on your toolboxes, click on Add Toolbox, and then navigate to the folder that your DBAS folder is in and add the toolbox that way. We'll go ahead and expand the partner toolbox, and we're going to double click on Project Setup. You'll see this year we actually have it set up so that your BAS ID will automatically populate based on the name of your project. So you no longer have to enter it for every tool. It will just automatically populate. You'll indicate whether you want to download the data using the toolbox or if you already have the data available on your hard drive. For this demo, we'll click yes, but for example, if we didn't, and we clicked no, a new dialog box will pop up that asks you to enter the path to the zip files that you downloaded from our website. This isn't the path to the .zip, it is the path to the folder that the zip files are in. It will go ahead and unzip everything for you and set it up the way it needs to be set up in that case. So just make sure that there's nothing else in that folder. It's just your zip files that you got from the Census Bureau. The next box asks you to indicate what level of geography you want to create changes for. The first 4 options require you to have your local boundary data ready to go. The next 5 from CDP, well, actually, Consolidated City should also be up here. That shouldn't be at the bottom. But CDP, linear feature, area landmark, and point landmark change types do not require you to have a boundary file or a change file to load in. You can just click on them and they will create a blank feature class for you at that point. And then we also have an option this year to just download my data where you don't have to enter anything in either of these fields. It will just go gather your data, bring it into the geodatabase, and you can view the census data as is and do a comparison if you'd like without creating changes first. For this demo, because I do already have a file, I'm going to indicate that I have incorporated place changes, and I'm going to navigate to my file. I've got my demo data already ready to go within my project folder. Click OK. And then another thing we've added this year is we've added a filter on your name field with local data or name field in local data so that it will just pull in any field in your input local boundary file that is a text type. And you can just select it. You don't have to type in the name field on your own. Now would be a good time to talk about why we need that name field in the local data and how it should be set up. So I'm actually going to pull in this shapefile so we can look at it real quick. We'll view the attribute table in a second. What we're looking for is the name of the entity or entities you want to create changes for. That is formatted exactly how either the Census Bureau has it in their data or how you want it to appear in our data. So that means the capitalization and spelling and spacing should all match up with what we have in our data in order to properly create the changes. So for this example, we're working with Huntsville City, Texas. The name field in the local data should just say Huntsville. And the capitalization should just have the H at the very beginning capitalized. Often we see submissions where everything's been capitalized, or there's shorthand abbreviations, or there's inconsistent spacing. So we just want to make sure that what matches here, or what's in this field, matches with what the Census Bureau has on file. If the name is spelled wrong in our data and you would like to correct that, it's okay if it doesn't match then. You do want to make sure that you mention it in your submission somewhere that the name is spelled incorrectly, and we will do our best to get that fixed as quickly as possible. So let's go back here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this and zoom out. Now that we've got all of our inputs set, I'm going to go ahead and click Run. I'll go ahead and open the details so you can kind of see some of the messaging that's going to pop up while we're working on this. So right now, this tool is going out and gathering the data from our FTP site. It's putting it in your project folder, in an archive folder, and it's going through all of that data that we may or may not need and just pulling out what we want so you can create your BAS submission and putting it inside the project geodatabase. So if your place extends through multiple counties, it's going to gather all of that information automatically and merge it all together for you, so you don't have to do that. It's also going to start pulling it into the project and symbolizing it for you, hopefully in just a couple more seconds. If for some reason you want to find additional data layers that we have on file and pull them into your project, such as block groups, school districts, any other levels of geography that we collect, you can go into that archive folder and pull them in as well for reference, but this tool will only pull in what is necessary to create your submission and to help you kind of orient yourself within the project. So as you can see, it's now pulled in all the data. It's going to start creating changes now from the local submission. So it does that by doing a union between our data and the data provided, removing where it's got the same name, that Huntsville name. It removes those like areas, and then it runs a sliver blaster tool, which removes all those tiny little slivers that folks don't want to have to deal with. We don't want to deal with them. You don't want to deal with them. So we just have it automatically do that for you at this point. And then once those are done, it adds the changes to the map so that you can start editing. And then it does add the changes at the top of the map. I recommend moving them below the level of geography that you're going to be working with, but you don't have to. That's just how we prefer to work with our data. All right. So if at this point, if I had other layers or other levels of geography I wanted to create changes for, or if I wanted to create some non-legal geography changes, I would double click on tool number 2, create additional changes. Again, it's going to automatically populate our BAS ID for us. We are going to enter the changes being processed. So for me, I'm going to say linear features, and then those bottom 2 inputs disappear, so you don't have to worry about them. But again, if you had a legal geography level that you were putting in, you would do the same thing. You would enter the shapefile or feature class that you want to create changes from, and then the name field to work with from that level of geography. At this point, I will click Run again. Like I said, for non-legal geographies, it just creates an empty shapefile or feature class for you to update and adds it to the top of the table of contents. For these entities, I'm not going to fully demo how they work, but essentially the easiest way to work with them is if you want to remove changes from our data, you can copy records over. So if, I guess I can go ahead and demo this real quick. If you want to remove data, or remove records from our data, you can copy from the edges layer and paste them into the changes layer as a delete. And that will maintain all the information we need. And of course, it's going to fail on me. I will have to look into that. But you should be able to copy them in and it will mark them as a delete for you. The same logic works as well. You should be able to copy from your data to add information in and paste it as an add line into our changes linear features. Same goes for landmarks, both point and area landmarks, and then CDPs as well. The only difference with CDPs is if you want to create changes, you may have to draw in polygons via tracing. Right. So now that we've created our linear feature changes, I am going to go in and start editing my legal changes. For this example, I know that I have a legal change here. So I need to update my required fields. Those required fields are going to be your change type, your effective date, your auth type, and your docu. And if you're working in the state of Georgia, you will also need the area filled out. If you're not in Georgia, area can be filled out, but it is not required. And if you do fill it out, that's okay too. So for this, since it's an annexation, we're going to mark it as an A for annexation. We will enter an effective date. You can use the date picker if you want, or you can just type one in. And then for the authorization type, we are looking for the type of document that was used to create this change. That can be an ordinance, a resolution, local laws, or a state level action. It just lets us know what method was used to create this change. So for this one, it was an ordinance. And then the document number should be that ordinance number or the legal document number that created the change or allowed the change to happen. It should not be a book and page number or an internal tracking number. It should be the actual legal document number. And then again, I can enter an area if I'd like, but it's not required for the state of Texas. All right. For this example, I'm also going to mark a couple of these other polygons as annexations. so that I can show you how the attribute check tool works. We are going to save our changes. And then we're going to come over here to our attribute check. Say, I know these are annexations, but I don't remember what the documents are. So I'm going to fill those out later. But when I come back to it, I forget where I was. I want to know what's missing. So you can go and run the attribute check tool. You'll want to bring in the level of geography you want to check from within the submission feature data set. So for this example, we're going to do our ink place changes. And then we will select our geography type. And then again, if you are in Georgia, that's the state 13, you'll want to just check this checkbox if you are. But if you're not, you can leave it unchecked. And then we'll click run. This is going to check all the attribution within your changes feature class. And it's going to create a CSV for any records that have issues. To see it, you'll want to go back to your folder, your project folder. It's going to populate here. It's always named the level of geography _ errors. And you can open it as a table to view it within ArcGIS Pro. You'll also see that there's an FID field here. You can use that FID field to actually join it to the data in your changes shapefile based on the FID field that gets added when you run the attribute check tool. That way you can see it all in one place. That's really helpful when you have lots of changes to go through. But in this case, we just have two. It will tell you if you have what information is missing or if it's not something that we recognize as a legal value. So you can use this to help guide your submission as you're working, and you can run it at any time. You can run it at the beginning, you can run it at the end, anywhere in the middle as well to kind of let you know if you're on the right track. I'm going to go ahead. Sorry, did not mean to query. That's misclicks, I'm sorry. Change type didn't update here. There we go. So now that we're all done with our submission, I'm happy with it. We can now come over back to our toolbox and click on the Export Submission Files tool. Again, it automatically populates our BAS ID. If you want to provide your parcels or streets layer just for us to have as a reference, you can now provide those here specifically, and then that lets us know exactly what they are when we are looking at your submission. And then also if you have any additional files to submit with your changes, you can add them here. This can be a map, PDF, a document, any item that you think would help us formulate your or properly complete your submission. So for this submission, I'm going to include this annexation document, and that just lets us have a reference when we're processing these changes. So we can just double check that everything was done correctly. You do not have to provide the documents. It just helps us know exactly what the intent is in your submission. And again, if you have maps or other documents you would like to provide, you can provide them at this point. The other thing that it will ask you for is your contact information. So this should be the contact information for the person who's creating the changes. It just tells us, or it just gives us a way to contact you if we have problems. We can contact the person who created the changes directly instead of trying to figure out who exactly created the changes. So we just kindly ask you to fill this out with your name, your government name, your title or department name, or both, and then your full street address, including your city, state, and zip, your email address, and your phone number. Again, that just allows us to contact you in case we have questions. So go ahead and click run. This is going to compile all the information that you created and that you put here in your additional files and put them in the submission automatically for you. So if we go over here to our file explorer, we can see that our return zip file is already created here. You can double check and make sure everything's in there. We can see our linear features. We can see our changes for our incorporated place. Our ordinance document that I provided. And then there's also a whole entity. That's just the whole boundary that you input to create the changes from. There's also the contact information text file that would provide us with that contact information. If you aren't sure what's in your zip file and don't feel like unzipping it, or if you can't preview it, you can also come into this submitted folder, and all the same information is listed here. This is everything that went into your submission. So you can double check it. And then it's not visible on that screen, but when the tool completed, it also opened Swim for me so that I can just immediately sign in and submit my changes through Swim. And that is the end of the Partnership Toolbox demo. I'm not sure if there are any questions right now. That I need to address. And if not, I will pass it over to Maria to go over GUPS Web. Is there a way?
Lauren.
Oh, sorry. There was one more question. Is there a way to upload multiple ordinance documents? Yes. So as you can see here, the additional files menu, as soon as you put one in, it allows you to enter more, and you can put as many as you want here and it'll just keep adding more. All right, sorry. I'll pass it over to Maria for real now.
All right, thanks, Lauren. All right, so I'm Maria Panashone, and I'm a geographer at the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm going to talk to you about the Geographic Update Partnership Software, otherwise known as GUPS. Okay, my screen should be sharing now. All right, so new to BAS in 2024, there's going to be 2 GUPS options for creating your change shape files. So we still have GUPS standalone. That's the downloadable application that's built in QGIS, like we've had offered for the past several years. And then new this year, we have GUPS Web. This is a web-based application, which is being introduced as a limited release for this year. All right, so GUPS is a customized geographic information system, or GIS, software provided by the U.S. Census Bureau. GUPS runs in QGIS, which is an open source software, and contains all the tools and functionality required to create a BAS submission. Participants can download the software from the BAS website. And please note that if you've used our downloadable GUPS in the past, you're going to have to download a new version for every year that you use it. So the latest version for 2024 is currently on our website. And also on our website, we have the how-to guide to use the QGIS GUPS and instructional videos for creating the submission. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say about the QGIS GUPS for today. Like I said, you could find information on our website if you're interested in using that method. But since GUPS Web is new, I'm going to talk more about that and do the demo for that today. So GUPS Web was developed specifically to support geographic participant programs at the U.S. Census Bureau. Like the downloadable QGIS-based version, it utilizes open source software, but now offers geographic update functionality that is entirely online. There are several benefits to using GUPS Web. The first being that the application is entirely online. This means that there's no software or add-on to download. This can help bypass some firewall issues that users of QGIS based GUPS may have encountered in the past. The web application also allows for more processing power, meaning that even with multiple users online, the speed remains sufficient. GUPS Web also has features that allow real-time collaboration with your colleagues. Multiple users can be invited to work on the same project, view, and make updates at the same time. All right, so like I mentioned before, we're doing a limited release of GUPS Web this year. So to start off the demo, I'm going to describe how to request and how to create your GUPS account. There are two ways to request access to GUPS Web. One is through the annual response form, and this is the one that Michaela showed off of the BAS website earlier. The second way to request access to GUPS Web is to send us an email at geo.bas@census.gov and include in your message your BAS ID, the email, and the name for who you're requesting the account for. And after you make this request, you will receive an email with the link and instructions for setting up your account. A basic requirement for creating your GUPS Web account is to register a CPAS. That's the Census Public Access Security. So that's another account. But once you have your CPAS registration, this will grant you access to GUPS Web. And the link that you receive in the email will walk you through all of the required steps. And so once you get your account set up, you're ready to get into GUPS Web and set up your project. So what you see on my screen here now, this is the Quick Start help page for GUPS Web. This is accessible off of GUPS Web itself, and I'll show you just in a second how to get here. But I just wanted to cover it really quickly. There's a lot of helpful information on here. A lot of it I'm going to cover in the demo today, including like how to use the BAS tools. But it also includes information on how to get started with GUPS Web, setting up your account in CPAS, and then pretty much top to bottom, like how to begin, create your changes, and how to submit your changes is all here on this help page. So once you get signed into GUPS Web, this is the page that you're going to see. We call this the dashboard for GUPS Web. So there's like two main pages that you're going to use in GUPS Web, this being the dashboard and then also your projects. I'm just going to cover some dashboard features really quickly. You have your profile here, and you can go in there, like update your contact information. You can also, to the left of your account information, if you're a program manager, so if you're designated as a program manager, you're going to be able to invite other users to your project. So let's say like you're collaborating with your colleagues, and you want to share your progress, your work, or just in general, share GUPS Web. you can invite other users using this page. Whenever you want to go back to the main dashboard view, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's this icon for the dashboard, and this will bring you back to kind of that home landing page. On the left-hand pane, you have map management. This is where you can start your project. So what you would do is go in, say you're working on 2024 BAS, enter your BAS ID, and then the project is going to be automatically filled for you with the BAS ID and your email address. And at that point, you can open up your project. So that's if you're starting a new project. Projects that already exist that you've worked on are going to show up in your recent projects pane on the right-hand side here. So you can see I have several projects started, and you can always just open up an existing project this way. And when you invite users, they'll see the same thing. And then if you ever want to get back to this help page, you would click on this question mark on the left for the help center. Okay, so that covers the dashboard. I'm going to get into this project that I've started for the demonstration. All right, this is going to be what the map looks like when you open up your project. As a new project, it's going to be zoomed out a little bit, usually on the view of a county. You can always zoom in using your scroll bar on your mouse to where you want to work. I'm going to cover some of the general navigation tools for GUPS Web. So the toolbar over here covers all your navigation, editing tools, layers, import, export, and then those same general icons that you saw on the dashboard. So you can return to dashboard here, and you have the help center, and you can just log out completely as well. In the top right-hand corner, you see this icon with, I don't know, someone's profile and the number 1. So that's a way of telling you who's currently working on this project. So right now I can see that the project is open by myself. If I had invited another user, it would show you anybody who's currently working in this project, like anyone who actively has it open. All right, so this top icon is the quick tools. These are navigation tools, one imagery tool, and then your save button. So the save button, as always, is important to know. You're going to want to save and refresh often, especially as you're making edits. If you're familiar with any other GIS system, the navigation tools are pretty straightforward. So you can go to previous zooms that you had, zoom last, zoom next, so you can go back and forth on your zoom levels. Your pan tool. So like, this is important to know, like if you are in the selection tools and you want to go back to panning on the map, this is how you get to the pan tool. This is a quick tool for adding Esri imagery. So when you click on that, it will add imagery. And then if you want to remove imagery, you can just click on that tool again. You have zoom in and zoom out. And then zoom full is going to bring you to the extent that I showed you earlier, like the original, like county-wide extent. So if you really get lost in your panning or whatever you're doing, you can always just go back there and then kind of get back to where you wanted to be. And this is the location for your save. Okay, next I'll show you the layers. Again, this should be familiar to anyone who's used a GIS before, even just something as basic as our viewer, like our Tiger viewer. You can turn layers on and off. And then if you want to use the selection tool later on, this is a good way of selecting a layer. And then you can go into your selection tools and select features from that selected layer. Okay, and then this little like wrench and hammer, this is your tools menu. You have your view tools, which includes a lot of what was already in the quick tools. But it has some additional tools, including the scale bar, which you can turn on, and it's going to show up in the lower right-hand corner. I would also note here that GUPS Web, we have, depending on the size of your screen, you might only be viewing a partial view of what's on the map. So just double check, like if you're not seeing the scale bar or something, if you're not seeing the scale bar, check out your scroll bar and see if you need to scroll down or up. And another neat feature we have on here is your bookmarks. So this is going to be especially helpful, like if you want to make a note to yourself, if you want to refer back to, like, let's say you started working through your changes, had to sign out, sign back in. It's a good way to make notes to self, and then also use as reference to other users that you may have invited to work on the project. So let's say you were moving around and you were looking at some changes. I don't have any up here right now, but you can always add new bookmark, and it's going to automatically name it as new bookmark, whatever number is next on the list. And you can update the name. And then you can also delete the bookmark if it was made by mistake. So this is a bookmark I had made earlier. I said expect an annexation in this area. So I don't know, if you want to preemptively anticipate changes before you make them, that's fine. But I'll show you, we can go back to it after we create the changes. And then we have our imagery tools here. So I already covered the add Esri imagery. This is the same tool that was featured in the quick tools. Here's a bonus remove imagery button. And then we have open Google Maps imagery and open Bing Maps imagery. So how to use these is like you'll select Google or Bing and then click on the map where you want to open up the Google or the Bing. If you don't click on the map, it's not going to do anything. So just a reminder to click. And then these are the selection tools that I mentioned earlier. And we can go back and use these after we've created the changes. But much like other GISs, you can select features by polygon, freehand, deselect. And then finally, here we are at the most important part, which is the BAS specific tools. So this is how you're going to create your changes. It works similarly to the partnership toolbox that Lauren just showed you. So what it does is it takes your whole shapefile, runs essentially like a symmetrical difference, and automatically creates the changes for you. So to begin this process, you're going to go to the edit tools. And then once you're in the edit tools, you're going to select which layer you're working on. So you can update CDPs, consolidated city, county, incorporated place, MCDs, reservation trust lands, and tribal subdivisions. For this instance, we're using incorporated place. And then you can upload your data either in a zip file or by piece. And this here describes like which specific files you need to upload. So the shapefile must have these 4 file types. That's the .shp, .shx, .dbf and .prj. So make sure your zip file has all of that. And then if you're selecting files individually, like I'll demo here, you want to make sure you're selecting those specific files. And then once you have selected your files, you'll see it show up underneath the Select Files button. So I can see the .dbf plus 3 more. If you selected the wrong things, you can always hit delete and try again. And then you're going to click import. Let's see. So I've like preloaded the shapefiles. Let me see if this causes a problem. Okay, so at this point, once you've uploaded your files, you're going to see another option to remove the file if you think you uploaded something incorrectly. And then the next important step is to pay attention to this data crosswalk. And so what this is doing is taking a field from your shapefile and comparing it to our census data. So you can either choose the state and place FIPS codes, the NSIC code, or the name and legal description. So whatever you choose, it'll remind you what you chose. So I have the name and legal description. And then under here, it's going to give you all the fields that you have in your shapefile. So I'm going to choose name LSAT and say create boundary changes. And for the sake of the demo, I've already created them. It works pretty quickly. Sometimes it takes a couple minutes, which is why I went ahead and made them. But once it's created the boundary changes, you'll be able to go into review tools here and click boundary review. And so this list here is all the changes that were created. So I'm going to go ahead and turn those on since I already created them. There they are. Okay. So sometimes, yeah, there's a small lag. So just be patient and I guess just wait 15 seconds. I'm impatient. All right. So going back to our boundary review, it opens up this attribute table and gives you the list of all the changes that were created. And so now at this point, your job is to go through each change and either accept or dismiss the change. So accept meaning like you want to update this boundary, turn it into the Census Bureau. Dismiss meaning like we don't really want to make this update. It's too minor or it's, I don't know, whatever. You don't want to turn it into us to be updated. You can dismiss it and it will be removed from that final shapefile that you send in to us. All right, so I'm going to go through some boundary corrections, an annexation, a de-annexation, just show you how to move through these. So here, this change, let's see, we can always turn on imagery to be more helpful. But let's go ahead and say this one, we want to keep it as a boundary correction. We know that it's correct. We want to make this update and send it into the Census Bureau. So just make sure you have it selected on the table and we have the change type selected as boundary correction. That's good. And we will click accept. And at this point, that removes it from our review table. It's still going to be in your layers. But it just kind of helps like eliminate as you walk through change by change. So you know what you've reviewed and what you haven't. All right, this is going to take a second to render, I guess. All right, so this one's a good example of one that we may not want to keep. It's probably hard to see, but this would be like what Lauren referred to earlier as a sliver. Ooh, you can see a little bit better from a distance. You can see like a thick black line here, and then like that blue triangle on the end. But that thick line is essentially just like a change that is so small. I guess we can't even see it. And then it has a pretty minor change on the end. So like, let's say I looked at this and decided this is not something that we want to turn in. We want to keep this boundary the same as it is. At this point, I would go in and click dismiss. So I'm removing that from our submission. All right, let's take a look at what would be a legal change. All right. So this area here highlighted in blue would be an annexation. We're bringing this area into the city limits. And at this point, we need the effective date, authorization type, and the document number in order for the Census Bureau to make this update. So we have this option to add legal information up here. And from this drop-down menu, you'll select either annexation or de-annexation. We know we're adding this area, so we're calling it an annexation. You have an option to upload a document. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then you have fields to fill in your document number, authorization type, and effective date. Oh, okay. So here, this is good. I already practiced uploading this document before, and it's telling me that this file has already been saved for this project. Do you want to replace the existing file or associate it with the selected change polygons? So let's say, let's associate it with the existing change polygons. So that way it's keeping both documents, just in case, I don't know, maybe you have multiple saved as the same name. And then we can see on the table, it's saved the effective date, authorization type, document number, and then we can see the attachment. So at this point, I'm going to select it again from the table and click accept. All right, so I've already demonstrated boundary correction, illegal change, and then an area we want to dismiss. So you're going to go through and accept or dismiss the rest of your changes. And I'm just being impatient and not letting them render, sorry. There we are. Okay, let's say this one we'll go through legal changes another time. And again, you can see how it fills out the table. And if I'm happy with that information, I'll click accept. And then let's just empty out this table. I'm gonna There we go. So let's say this isn't something we want to keep for whatever reason. Let's just accept that one as a boundary correction, and then there we go. Okay. So I would be wrong to call that a boundary correction. So I'm going to go ahead and add legal documentation for this one too. All right, and then we'll accept this one, and then our boundary review is done. But it's all going to be in this layer here. So the incorporated place layer that you have your annexation, de-annexation, and then your boundary corrections that you've kept, and then the ones that you've removed. So once you are done reviewing all your changes, we're ready to export. And to do that, you're going to go to the import export tool here. And then we're concerned with BAS, with the export tools. And you've got several options here. So you can export the map as like a PDF, select the size, or yeah, JPEG, PNG. You can download the project files just for your own records, for your own use, and then submit to Census is what's important here. And right now this works pretty similar to what Lauren showed in the, oh, yeah. All right. So yes, your submission is complete. And at that point, you're good to go. Make sure you download a file for yourself. And that's how you use GUPS Web. And like I said before, this is limited release right now, so it's pretty much invitation only. If you want to use GUPS Web, please check out the annual response form or send us an email at geo.bas@census.gov, and we'll get you connected with the link and information you need to register your account. We're very excited to share this with you all this year, and look forward to seeing users use it and get some feedback from you all and see how we can improve it for future BAS years. And now I'm going to hand it back to Lauren to talk about the swim submission.
Thanks, Maria. All right. All BAS participants must utilize the Secure Web Incoming Module, or SWIM, to submit their program updates. SWIM is the official web portal for uploading materials to the Census Bureau, and it is the only secure method for digital program submission. Due to security reasons, the Census Bureau cannot accept files sent via email or through alternate FTP sites or file transfer protocol sites. GUPS Web will provide the submission file directly to the Census Bureau without the need for SWIM. Participants with an existing SWIM account should log in using their email address and password, which are both case sensitive. Participants who have previously submitted to BAS or another Census Bureau partnership program can use their existing account to submit to BAS. They do not need to set up a new account. Participants who do not remember their password may use the forgot password option to reset it. And again, I just want to stress that the email and password are case sensitive. So if you capitalized anything in your email address when you signed up, it should be capitalized when you log in. All right, participants without an existing SWIM account should register for an account using a 12-digit registration token provided by the Census Bureau. If participants indicated on their BAS annual response form that they wished to use the Geographic Update Partnership Software or would download the partnership shapefiles, they will automatically receive the SWIM URL and registration token via email 5 calendar days after the Census Bureau receives the completed annual response form. Participants who do not receive a registration token after 5 days should email geobas@census.gov to request one. Once a token has been assigned, participants can register their SWIM accounts. All right, and at this point, I am going to open SWIM and just show you real quick how to use it. It's pretty straightforward though. All right. So when you enter the SWIM URL and get to the landing page, this is what it will look like. You're going to enter your email address. Make sure I spelled it right. And then you are going to enter your password and click on login. To submit your updates, you're going to click on Start New Upload. You'll select your program. For this, you're going to select BAS. Click on Next. And then you will select the BAS entity you are reporting for. So it's important to note here that if you're submitting on behalf of an incorporated place, even if you're at the county level, you'll want to select incorporated place just so that you get the right BAS IDs. Click Next, and then we will select our state. I'm going to use the same example we used in the Toolbox demo. So that was Huntsville. It's going to be all the way at the bottom. Huntsville City, and then click Next. And now we are going to select our zip file to upload. It's important to note the file size should not exceed 250 megabytes. If it does, you can always remove things from your zip file and submit 2 zip files separately to make sure that you are below that limit. We'll go into our project folder and find our return, and we will upload our BAS submission. If you'd like to include any comments, feel free to include them here. This can be notes about who created the submission, what's in the submission, if there's anything you feel like we need to know about the submission at this point, you can enter it here in the comments. I'm just going to say that this was webinar demo example, so no one thinks it's a real submission. But again, you can include contact information, anything that you think might be helpful for us to know. We'll make sure it gets to the right folks if you include it here. Then you click Next, and that's it. You've submitted your BAS submission. If you need to submit more files, you can click right here, and it will take you right back to the beginning, and you can start a new upload. And at this point, this concludes today's webinar. On behalf of the entire BAS team, we want to thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions following today's webinar, please reach out to us at geo.bas@census.gov. And as a reminder, you'll see an evaluation link when you exit the WebEx session today. We would greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to fill out the survey and provide feedback on today's webinar. We appreciate your time and participation in BAS. Have a wonderful day.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.